Senator Cory Booker just broke the record for the longest speech on the Senate floor. So let's take a look at his very last closing remarks, and then we can talk more about it.
Tried over the last 25 hours and 1 minute to center the conversation back on what will we do of good conscience. And so I end by saying simply this: where I started was John Lewis. I don't know how to solve this. I don't know how to stop us from going down this road, but I know who does have the power: the people of the United States of America. The power of the people is greater than the people in power. It is time to heed the words of the man I began this whole thing with, John Lewis. He said for us to go out and cause some good trouble, necessary trouble, to redeem the soul of our nation. I want you to redeem the dream. Let's be bold in America, with a vision that inspires, with hope that starts with the people of the United States of America. That's how this country started. We, the people. This is a moral moment. It's not left or right, it's right or wrong. Let's get in good trouble. My friend, Madam President, I yield the floor.
So very emotional ending there to Cory Booker's 25-hour marathon speech on the Senate floor. I mean, who can even speak half clearly for 5 minutes, nonetheless, 25 hours? So an incredible feat. So why did he do this? Well, he said that he did it because people were calling for more action and felt like Senate Democrats and the leaders of the Democrats were not seeing any kind of urgency to the situation. And he wanted to kind of follow up and respond to that. And there's a weird side note that happened on this day, that he had an aide who was carrying a pistol around the Senate along with him. And the police said that Cory Booker escorted this aide with a pistol around security. So like he was an accessory to having a weapon, an unsanctioned weapon around the Senate. So what is all about? That's so baffling. I mean, how could that happen? And what does that mean for his, does that take away from his credibility as somebody who would advocate for, let's say, gun control? So very bizarre, baffling. Side note, potentially kind of souring this moment. But I think the pure feat of it seemed to overshadow that somewhat of a hiccup. And so here we have as well Cory Booker talking more about why he did this. So check this out.
I'm about to go to the Senate floor where I intend to be recognized. And when I am not going to stop speaking. I'm going to not stop standing. I'm going to go for as long as I'm physically able to go. I've been hearing from people all over my state and indeed all over the nation calling upon folks in Congress to do more, to do things that recognize the urgency, the crisis of the moment. And so we all have a responsibility, I believe, to do something different, to cause, as John Lewis said, good trouble, and that includes me. I'm about to go to the Senate floor.
So Cory Booker is obviously a very capable, powerful speaker. Even in his closing remarks, he called upon the memory and quoted John Lewis, civil rights activist, and apparently somebody that Cory Booker really looks up to, and is able to speak very fluidly using metaphors. He uses language, he uses rhyme, repetition, alliteration in powerful ways to spread his message more effectively. So very impressive that he's able to do that at such a high level for such an extended period of time. So what policy specifically was he really protesting here? Because this wasn't technically a filibuster preventing any legislation from being passed. It was just a more general, broad acknowledgement of everyday Democrats' concerns about what's happening with the country, with Trump's actions, and with Elon Musk, etc. Including some specific things he mentioned was the cuts to Social Security, to healthcare. He talked about the, what we're seeing with these abductions of immigrants and being deported or sent off to these kind of prison camps. So he did mention some specific issues, but just so he also read letters of his constituents that had written to him. And then, of course, he was passing off the floor at times to some of his colleagues who were asking him questions, or who were just kind of going on side tangents just to kind of buy him some more time, because surely you could imagine your voice would get tired for speaking that long. Now, how did he do this? So how does anybody stand up straight without eating, drinking anything really, or going to the bathroom for 24 hours? I think, there's lots of theories about how that would work logistically. But I believe, so from my research, and I investigated this thoroughly, I don't think he went to the bathroom for 24 hours. So he held it in the whole time. Towards the end, he even kind of half joked that he had to take care of his impending biological urges. He also fasted before the speech. He abstained from eating and even drinking water beforehand, because I guess that would kind of prep him and dehydrate him to be able to accomplish this without taking any breaks. There was reports that he just kind of barely sipped on water throughout his extended speaking session, and actually found something from his history that I had no idea, that this isn't his first time going on some marathon extended event for publicity for a political purpose. So when he was a younger person, when he, I believe, just joined the city council, this would have been over 25 years ago, he actually went on a hunger strike for 10 days to raise awareness on crime and drugs being dealt in certain areas in his community. So he's kind of done stuff like this before. He lived in a motorhome for several months, going to different parts of town that were riddled with crime and drugs to raise more awareness. So he's kind of he's done this kind of thing before in some previous settings. So do you think that this is an effective way to draw attention to important current issues? Let me know what you think about that. Now, what's his real end game here? Do we really think that there's no intention to run for president in 2028? Of course there is. So I pulled up here a graph of the polls from 2019 leading up to the 2020 election for the Democratic nominees here. So we have, Biden in the blue, Sanders in the green. We have Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Beto O'Rourke, and then Cory Booker. So Cory Booker did not fare so well in the polls the first time he ran. So you could see, if you can see, there's a gray line somewhere down here indicating Cory Booker's poll numbers, really outshadowed by even Kamala Harris, who's in the orange there, significantly above him. But I think that this really does give him some grounds to stand out from other candidates. We know Pete Buttigieg is considering running. He's turned down running for Senate in Michigan. Kamala Harris is considering it as well. She's also considering running for the governorship in California. She said that she would consider this and decide by the end of this summer whether she would run for governor in California. And then obviously if she did that, presumably she would not run for president in 2028. Gavin Newsom has not ruled it out, and you could tell he's, his eyes sparkle when it's brought up. So Cory Booker, I think this will certainly make him stand out for being a candidate in the 2028 Democratic Convention. So let me know your thoughts on Cory Booker's political stunt. Do you think that this is an effective response to a Trump presidency? Was it worthwhile? Do you think this was all for show? Why the heck did he have an aide with a pistol around? Let me know your thoughts about all this, and I'll see you in the next one.